Hello gamers, Melikan here from MKAU As always, bring you the latest and greatest in gaming news and reviews. And have we got a bit of a treat for you today? ASUS have sent us, I'll just move that so it's in the frame, one of their TUF gaming Z890-Plus Wi-Fi motherboards. Now this particular one is being released to sort of coincide with the release of the Intel Core Ultra Series 2 processors. These ones are due out on the 25th of October, I believe, at least in Australia. I think 24th of October in the other part of the world, America. So yes, they've sent us this one as a little bit of a sneak peek. Very excited to open this one up and have a little bit of a look. I will admit, I've already had a little bit of a sneak peek, and I'm actually really quite excited about what's in here. So, first and foremost, we'll go over a couple of things on the box. So, there is a massive suite of AI software included with this board. As you can see here, LGA 1851, as well as M2 PCIe 5.0 connectivity. So that's one of the M2 drives. We have DTS sound. Obviously we've got HDMI. We've got our Wi-Fi 7. And my favorite, Aura Sync. But let's face it, it's not all about the box. That's not why you're here. So, if we crack this open, we have a motherboard. Very exciting, in its plastic, nice and safe. And we're about to change that because I want to show you some of its cool features. So if we pop this a little bit open, pull this out. Here we have, if I can get it open without wrecking the packaging, one of ASUS's Hue antennas, which uses these connectors here. Let's see if I can get that to focus a bit better. Helps if it's more centered. Can't really quite tell if that's focused. If you haven't used these before, these simply push on and then they easily release. So you don't have to worry about twisting them or anything like that. Makes for a really good connection, first and foremost. But it also means you're not potentially damaging the cables because you're trying to twist the screw-on component and it's just not working out for you. The antenna itself also looks quite cool. Sits nice and proud on top of your PC case. I believe while we were down at PAX, there was actually a system that was using one of these, or at least something similar, to represent the fin on a shark. So that's our antenna. And I know that's what you're here to see. However, if we dive in a little bit deeper, we have our board. But I'm going to put this aside for a moment because there are a couple of little things in the box that will make a little bit more sense once I open this up. So we'll pop that there. We'll lift this up and move it across to the side. So this here is a little bit exciting to me. This here, if we turn it around, I don't know if you're going to be able to read that, but this is a Q slide. So in previous reviews, I've spoken about the Q clips, I think they're called. Let's see if I can find one. I cannot currently find one. Okay, so a lot of ASUS's boards have something on them called a Q clip, which basically means quick and easy access for SSDs, any of your M2 drives. This here takes a little step further. And rather than having a little clip, which is covered by a heatsink that you have to undo a couple of screws to get to, this simply slides off, SSD pops out. Something I'm excited for, because it means that this computer or this motherboard is going to be incredibly easy to put together and take apart should you need to. We also have this here, which I'll show you what this does shortly. I initially thought it was like a little injection mold standee for a, I guess, like a model that you sort of clip off the sprue, put it together, and it just sort of sits there as a stand, but that's not the case. I'll show you that one after. We also get a TUF Gaming sticker sheet. This thing is awesome. It might not make it back to ASUS. Probably shouldn't say that on record, but I have already. We do have a couple of SATA cables, should you be kicking it old school with a hard disk drive or a solid state drive that's not an M2 drive. And then we have a couple of packs of these things. These are M2 rubbers. I will admit I haven't read the manual, so I'm not entirely sure what these are for, but we'll find out together. And lastly, if I can get these in focus, we have a little standoff and a little SSD screw. So this motherboard can actually take up to 4 M2 drives. One of those is connected or secured using this. 2 of them are secured using the Q release. And then the other, the main one, the piece de resistance, is secured using this. So I'm going to cut here. We're going to reorganize some stuff. We're going to shoo away the bugs because it's nighttime and it's horrible and there's lights. And I live in Australia, so, you know, bugs. And we're going to focus on the motherboard. I'll be right back with you. Alrighty, so now that we've got our board undressed and looking incredibly sexy, we can see it in all its glory. Now, with the current camera angle, you might not be able to, but don't worry, I will fix that. So, starting from the top and working our way down, we've got our heat sinks. So these are our VRM heat sinks, effectively designed to keep our voltage regulation system nice and cool. Probably not cold, but cool. But it is TUF Gaming, so it is built for durability, so probably cold. Unfortunately, we can't get our hands on the CPU for this one at the moment, simply because it hasn't been released yet. It's coming out on the 25th of October 2024 in Australia. It's not that date when I'm recording this. But anywho, across here we have our 4 DIMM slots. These here will take up to 192 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM running at up to 9066 MTS overclocked. It also supports Intel Extreme Memory Profile and ASUS's Enhanced Memory Profile 3. So if you want to overclock your RAM, this will do it. It also comes with an AI sweep that will help you out with that, so that you can effectively prevent things from going pop, because we don't want that in a shiny new computer. Our socket here is an LGA 1851, so that is the Intel Core Ultra Series processors, specifically the Series 2, and it will support Turbo Boost Technology 2.0 and Turbo Boost Max technology 3.0. So again, if you want to bump up your system a little bit, this is the board that's going to do it for you. It comes with an AI suite that's going to help you out with that. Moving on to our first little party trick. Actually, before we do that, I'll address what I thought was a model kit for a little stand. This lets you add a little bit of extra flair to your motherboard. It will slot over any of these heat sinks. Sorry, I got distracted by a flying insect. And it does so using these little guide rails. So across the sides here, and then sort of down here, it's got a little bit of a guide, similar to, if you're familiar with weapons, Picatinny rails, just without the bumpy bits. And yeah, it just sort of slots on, adds a little bit of flair for you. But moving on to fun stuff. This heatsink houses our first M2 slot, and this is a PCIe 5.0 M2 slot. It will take either a 2280, a 2260, or a 2242, and it's easily accessed by simply clicking this little lever down, picking up the heatsink, and then popping your M2 drive in here. So if you're using a 2280, we have another Q release lever here that will simply pull out of the way, pop the card in, let it go, locks the card in place. Alternatively, there is a little screw socket in there, a nut, I guess, which means you could screw it down should you choose to. We've then got another two holes here where we can use, if I can find it. I currently can't find it. There we go, found it. Sorry about the wait. Our little standoff and our little screw, or its other party trick, the Q slide. I'm not going to take this out of the bag just because it is factory sealed and we do need to send it back. I don't want it to get lost. But what this does is there's another little sort of heat sink on the bottom here. It slides over the top. You pop your M2 drive in, hold it down with a finger and slide this over the top of it, locks it down, holds it in place. And then when you are ready to pop your heatsink back on, which by the way, seems to be molded to the point where if I was to take a saw and cut this in half, you'd probably see that all the way through. So that's kind of cool. Now this is a lot easier to do when you're not trying to do it for the camera, but slots in, clicks down. Hopefully that was a nice click for you. Our first expansion slot here is a PCIe 5.0 X16. So if you are using one of the newer graphics cards or a newer expansion card that runs 5.0, that's the slot you want to put it in. It also uses the Q release system, making it really easy to drop a card in, push the button, pull the card out. So if, like us, you're putting together a benchmarking system where you're constantly swapping pieces in and out, this comes in very handy. We've got our Intel Z890 chipset, And then nice big heatsink over the top of that with the TUF gaming logo, which looks really cool. It also looks like it might light up. I could be wrong about that. Again, haven't installed this, haven't powered it up, not going to do that, so I'm not 100% sure. What they do show on their website is this little panel in the top right hand corner, which they are LEDs, so they will light up, but it does look like, potentially, could be wrong, but there's 4 sort of little windows on the sides here, as well as a couple of tabs down the side here on the heatsink that look like they may contain LEDs. I could be wrong, don't quote me on that. It doesn't show that on the website. But moving on, we have 2 PCIe 4.0 X1s. We have a second slot for an M2 drive. Now this one here looks like it's only going to take a 2280. Could be wrong. I'm also not going to stick my head down close enough to read it because we don't need my mug on camera when we've got this beautiful thing here. PCIe 4.0 X4 slot. And then underneath here, we have an additional 2 M2 PCIe 4.0 slots for, I mean, I'd throw SSDs in there. That's just me. To be honest, I haven't looked to see if there's anything else that uses M2 slots because I've just been thinking about memory whenever I put a computer together. So that's what I'd be chucking in there. Or storage, I should say storage. Memory, storage, memory, storage. Anyway, we have our Realtek audio codec. This one here, if you'll bear with me while I get the information up because I haven't got it directly in front of me. This one here is, what do we got? Realtek ALC 1220p with 7.1 surround sound high definition audio and DTS tuning. So pretty good sound, and I'll show you why afterwards. And then we have our final expansion slot here, which this one is PCIe 4.0 X16, but it does have support for X4 as well. So if you needed an extra one of these, that'll do it for you. The other thing I like, and this may or may not influence your decision, is the external case connectors, the SATA connectors, your power connectors, your case fans, all of your external connections, plus, well, including, I should say, including USB and case fans, and as I said, SATA, they're all located in easy to reach places, perhaps with the exception of one of the fan header pins. But that's usually the case when it comes to your CPU fan. Now, there are a total of 6 CPU header pins, fan header pins, sorry. Obviously, we've got our CPU fan here. If you've got a backup CPU fan or an all-in-one cooling system, that's up here. And then located across the bottom here, we have, what do we got? There's 1, I can't quite see in this light, 2, 3, and there's going to be a 4th one somewhere. Let's see if we can find it. It's hiding. Why can't I find it? It'd be easier if I looked in the manual. Anyway, there are 4 on here. I did find them earlier. I just can't now. What do we got? 1, 2, 3. Where's the 4th one gone? My apologies. Sorry. Okay. So there's an additional one at the top here. Okay. We got there. Don't panic. We've got 4 SATA connectors, as well as a 20 gigabyte per second USB, in case you've got one of those on the front of your case. We've got a 5 gigabyte USB, as well as a couple of standard case USB header pins. We've got our audio for the front of the case. And then we've got our front panel I/O system down the front here, or down the bottom. So again, plenty of space, plenty of connections for activities. If you are a little bit of a fiend for RGB, like I am, we have 3 ARGB pins. That means addressable red, green, blue. So for those not quite electronically minded, it's the LEDs where you can have, if you've got a series of LEDs, for example, you can specifically say that LED is red, that LED is blue, that LED is purple, that LED is green, and you can have them all sort of changing and cycling. So some fans, for example, the whole fan will be red, the whole fan will be purple, but the ones where you see the LEDs sort of chasing each other, that's your ARGB. And you've got 3 pins for that. You've got 2 on the bottom here, and then you've got a 3rd one up the top. So if you wanted your radiator for your cooler to be displaying a different color to the fans on the front of the case, and then they're displaying a different color to the fans that are on the side of the case, the bottom of the case, the back of the case. If you've got a RGB rope around the inside of your case to light the whole thing up, whatever, you've got 3 ways of controlling those. So effectively you've got 3 zones that give you control over your LEDs. So light it up, baby. Go for gold. Now I'm going to cut here and I'm going to move and reposition everything so that we can get a slightly better view of the rear I/O panel, because there's a few little cool features here as well. So now that we're all zoomed in on our gorgeous lady's back end, as you can see, we've got our I/O panel. Now from top to bottom, we've got HDMI and DisplayPort. We also have our BIOS flash. And then as we move down, we've got a USB Type-C Thunderbolt 4, as well as a 10 gigabyte USB Type-A. Moving further down the list, we've got another USB Type-C. This one, however, supports 20 gigabytes, and it can run as a DisplayPort in an alternative mode. We've got 3 5 gig USB sockets, so nice and fast for a standard USB. Not quite as fast as the 10, but still pretty quick. I remember the days when looking for a blue USB port meant that you had a really good computer, which is kind of hard to do when the camera's zoomed in. I do apologize for that. Moving a little further down the list, we have our BIOS USB, which is, it's another 10 gigabyte one, but that's specifically if you're doing a BIOS flash. as well as a standard, I say standard, but a 10 gig USB. We have a 2.5 gig RJ45 connection, also known as Ethernet. And then we've got the receivers for our antenna. And I'm hoping I can do this on camera without blocking everybody's view. But if we go back to our antenna pins, these will just easily slot on and then slot off. So if you're moving your computer because you're moving house, for example, maybe you're going to a LAN party, you want to make use of 2.5 gig RJ45, the antenna will come off nice and easily. You're not going to accidentally break anything. You're all good. We have our optical audio, also known as SPDIF output. I just call it an optical cable because that's basically what we called it when I was working in retail. It's the easiest way to describe it. But if you're using one of those newfangled sound systems that uses optical, there's your boy there. And then we have 5 3.5 millimeter audio jacks. So these are the ones where, I guess if you're kicking it old school, you'll plug in the different colored cables that correspond with the colored ring, and that gives you your 5.1, or in this case, as mentioned before, 7.1 surround sound. So yeah, look, that's the TUF Gaming Z890-Plus Wi-Fi motherboard from ASUS. So with that, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to the team at ASUS for sending this one to us nice and early so that we could have a little bit of a sneak peek. I'm looking forward to getting my hands on one of the new CPUs so I can play with this one a little bit. But otherwise, as I said, if you're on the market for a new board, you're looking to upgrade, update your system, or even if you're building from scratch, this has got to be one of the easiest boards to use. And being TUF Gaming, you know it's going to be reliable, you know it's going to be durable. They use extremely good quality components. So this thing's going to last you. And yeah, with that, let us know what you think down in the comments below. And while you're there, why don't you subscribe, hit that bell, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.